we have it.
That's the
Allô, allô, allô. Hello.
hello. Hello. I would like to welcome all of you back from the health break. It was really a health break because we had tea, we had juice, and we had sandwiches and tiny cakes, and we also walked. So we've done all the fast. I'm sure the calories we've burned is so much. We've come to the main technical session of the program, and the first session after the opening ceremony, which is titled The Role of STI in Supporting the Post-2015 Agenda. But before we start the session, I will just put a few things in order. For each session, before we start a session, we would like those who will be present, and you know yourself because you've been contacted, to see Dr. Frimpong, who is sitting here, and give him your presentations. So it means that those presenting in session 2, when we have the break, you please see Dr. Frimpong and give him your presentations. And also note that all presenters, you would sit at the high table, which is on my right side now. And yeah, thank you. Also, we have, let me inform you, take this opportunity and inform you that we are live online. You can go to www.youtube.com/watch?CI9ENMAU 68. I'm going to put that information on the wall, just as we put the password here, so you can go online and also see what is happening. We may be having contributors from people who were not able to be here but wants to join us. Thank you. Again, before we start, we have a first presentation. I would like to observe some protocols. Probably if these protocols were not observed in the opening ceremony. But as you can see, we had a very tight schedule in the opening ceremony. I'd like to acknowledge the ministers and the deputy ministers and the honorable parliamentarians and representatives that are here for this technical session. We have in our midst the honorable minister from Zimbabwe, Honorable Opa Michinguri from Zimbabwe. Honorable, if you are here. We have in our midst the Honorable Deputy Minister from South Sudan, Honorable Ho Makin Yo. We have in our midst the Honorable Deputy Minister of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Benis Hill. We have in our midst a number of parliamentarians from Ghana, and I will later on, but also we have in our midst the Pan-African Parliament, and I think we have one of our honorable ministers, honorable MPs serving in the Pan-African Parliament. We have Honorable Francois Ango Ndutui, if you are here, Honorable, and then Honorable Charumbra, Chief, Honorable Mohammed Tayim Laskri, Honorable Ose Imwobui, Director of Bureau. Okay, thank you. So we would go and have the first presentation. I'll keep acknowledging representatives as we go on, please. So pardon me if I have not come to you yet. We would have the first presentation or statement by the UNDP resident rep for Ghana. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I all protocols observed. I missed my own protocol. Yes. And also, each session will have a chair as indicated in the program. And so for our chair of this session, which is the role of STI in supporting post-2015 agenda, SDG agenda, we have the Director General of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR Ghana, Dr. Ajimine, who is sharing. Dr. Ajimine would give us a brief statement. Then I would leave, I think, the technical sessions for this session one in your hand. Thank you.
Thank you. I like your enthusiasm and the drive. First of all, I'd like to express my appreciation to the honorable ministers and to all of you for coming in. I hope that this session will be an exciting period. But I have two comments before I actually call on speakers. All right, for those of you who are stretching your necks, let me stand a little, because there are certain times some people say I'm physically challenged, but I don't believe that. I'd like to do quick statements. The first one is the fact that recently I was looking at a survey that was done in the US. I tried to find out if there were several of such surveys in Africa, but I didn't find that. They looked at for certain specific issues on STI. They looked at the perception of scientists and that of the general public. And what was interesting was the fact that consistently there was about 20 this is just for the translators. I think the mic was off. I said recently I was looking at a survey report from the United States. I couldn't find any such study on the African continent. But they looked at the perception of STI issues. Just goes off. The scientists and the general public. And they realized that there was a 20 to 40 percentage gap in perception on issues, or in the what people believe, scientists believe, and what the general public believe, from GMOs to the contribution of scientists to the economy and all other things. But the general thing, message that came out was the fact that probably scientists are not doing a very good job of communicating the results, their results, and the impact of science to the general public. And that is why there is that gap. And that is why I was excited when the director, one of our directors, the director of the Science, Technology and Policy Research Institute, came to me one day and said that in collaboration with UNESCO, they were organizing this meeting. I was pleased because we were bringing together ministers, parliamentarians, and high-level personnel in a dialogue on STI. For me, this is the way forward for Africa. And we need to have more studies. If in the US, where the level, there is a 20 to 40% percentage gap in what people believe, then on the African continent, I believe that the gap will be wider. And that is why I am pleased that you are here. The other thing that I just want to say is the fact that recently I have two daughters, 14 and 12. And they are very good in science. So I asked them, I was actually encouraging them to study science. But they said no. And particularly the 12-year-old said that she wanted to study banking or fashion design. And I asked why, because she said that she wanted to be rich and to make money. So I then decided what is the reason. But apparently, I got to know later by looking at the content on the television that the television promotes a certain type of, let me put it, profession and others as the quickest road to wealth and to making it. We as people in the science and technology and innovation field are not doing a very good work. But having said this, we have 4 excellent presentations that we are going to listen to. There are a few changes that will come up. The first presentation actually is from the UNDP representative, which looks at the transition from the MDGs to SDGs. That's going to be an excellent presentation. I've been reliably informed. His name is Sam. So I thought he was a Ghanaian, but he says he's a Cameroonian. And he has some exciting things to say. I will introduce all of them. The second one is going to be a video presentation. The presenter is not here. And that is the roadmap to post-2015 science agenda. After that, we would have another presentation, but it is not as is there. It's not going to be the African vision for SDGs, but rather he's going to talk about the science, technology, and innovation strategy for Africa. That is the presentation, and it will be by Almami Conte. And then we would then have Professor Hubert Chizen, setting the stage for sustainability science for Africa. And because we we have a problem with our timing. We've lost more than an hour. We've informed them that the presentation will be only for 10 minutes. So after 7, I'll show you a card, and at 10, I'll show you another red card. Thank you very much. We'll listen to Sam. Please, if you can.
Thank you very much, Dr. John, for those very. I think before I start my presentation, I want to make a comment. Oh, sure.
If you sit here, yes. There's a mic.
Thank you very much, Dr. German, for this very exciting talk. I think you touched on a critical point that I want to make a quick comment on that before I start my presentation. Yes, I think perception counts. Yes, I think what we do, we need to communicate it. And I think we need to say it. And I think for so long, particularly in our part of the world, really we haven't sold our scientists well on the work that we do. And maybe that's why in most cases in our national plans, they're very often falling through the cracks. That said, honorable ministers, parliamentarians, colleagues in the low table, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Actually, I'm very pleased to be here to offer a few remarks on the transition from the MDGs to the SDGs. Why science, technology, and innovation have an even more critical role to play here, and what you as decision makers and parliamentarians can do to catalyze transformation in the African context more generally. I'll focus my remarks on 3 sets of issues. First, the transition from MDGs to SDGs, and some of the changes that have taken place in the meanwhile. Second, to share with you some of the thinking that has gone into crafting of the Sustainable Development Goals and the implications of putting in place and implementing a more comprehensive, integrated, transformative development agenda. And lastly, to offer a few reflections on the priorities and issues related to fostering science, technology, and innovation where leadership is so vital. From the MDGs to SDGs, what has changed? As some have rightly said, the Millennium Declaration did outline the vision for the new millennium. It framed the MDGs, and together with the momentum offered by Rio Plus 20, helped to lay the foundations for the comprehensive, integrated, and transformative agenda which characterizes the Sustainable Development Goals. You will recall that in the fall of 2000, I'm sure you can recall that, it's not that far away, but it is far, world leaders came to New York to deliberate and adopt the Millennium Declaration. There was a renewed sense of hope and a global commitment to mankind coming out of a century of unprecedented wealth creation and advances in technology, which had, however, left many people behind, and that's a fact. In the Millennium Declaration, the world leaders reaffirmed their faith in the UN Organization and Charter, its indispensable foundation of a more peaceful, prosperous, and just world. They recognize that beyond their separate responsibilities to their individual societies, that they have a collective responsibility and a duty to the world's people, especially the most vulnerable. The Millennium Declaration considered certain values essential to international relations in the 21st century. These are freedom, equality, solidarity, tolerance, respect for nature, and shared responsibility. And these values also form the core of your work and the efforts as we work to develop our countries. Dignity and improved living standards and well-being of our peoples, and effective use of abundant natural resources so they will not only brighten our futures, but also our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. I know that you have difficult task of making policy and working with seemingly ever more constrained budgets in spite of the rising levels of growth in many of our countries. For too long, we have assumed that science and technology and innovation could wait until we had satisfied basic needs and invested in infrastructure. However, if the SDGs are to be achieved, will have to reassess the priority we are assigning to these issues in our budgets, in the configuration of our institutions, in the training we offer our young people, while also identifying opportunities which can leverage for our businesses from dynamic homegrown technologies and innovations which are also suitable for other countries with similar conditions. In fact, this is not our choice. It is important for us to recognize that we live in a rapidly changing world. This looks very different from the dawn of the millennium when world leaders met in New York and signed the Millennium Declaration. Here I want to emphasize not just the changed global environment, the transformative technologies, the increased economic opportunities signaled by the high growth rates and investments in the continent, but also the scale of the demographic transition. Growing numbers of youth and urban transition in the African context, and what needs to be done to ensure that we plan and vision an economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable future. All of this requires us to ensure that we are up to task of promoting new ways of doing things and new investments if we are not to be left behind or to have to depend upon others for access to new technologies and life innovations. The scale of the demographic and other changes means that we have no time to lose. When the MDGs were agreed to, the share of the world's population living in the cities was less than 50%. However, since 2007, 50% of the world's population is estimated to live in urban areas. Further, 95% of urban expansion would take place in the developing continents, that's Asia and Africa. For example, the total African population is estimated to nearly double to almost 2 billion in just 25 years. And the majority will live in urban areas in the countries that many of you are responsible for. This not only means that more children will need access to schools, but also that these children will need to be equipped with skills that will get them jobs in the changing global environment. Many more people will migrate to cities in search of work, greater numbers will need to commit to work, and more demands will be made for energy, water, and sanitation in cities, even as climate change requires that we invest in being both sustainable and resilient. If we want to have to increase access to energy, to healthcare, to infrastructure, we'll have to foster innovation, conservation, and efficiencies, as well as focus on our science and technology and production capabilities to identify new products and to bring down the cost of renewable energy, of drugs and essential medicines, of building materials and agricultural inputs, among others. Transformation, Integrated Comprehensive Development Agenda, post-2010 and 2015. As I alluded to earlier, Rio Plus 20 and global reflection analysis in the lead up to post-2015 have made all of us realize that it cannot be business and development as usual. With regards to the environment, with regard to the people who are increasingly living and working in a world which offers more unequal work and education opportunities, and with regard to promoting economic growth that also contributes to jobs, increased well-being, and the quality of the environment. With the MDGs, which were the building blocks, and if you like, for some the minimum development agenda, there was no a priori or comprehensive focus on the how or in the enabling environment. While we need to keep an eye on the simple outcomes and measurable goals, we also need to focus on how we can get there and how to domesticate and localize the SDGs to our national context as appropriate. This is the space that the SDGs and post-20 development agenda provides. The 17 SDGs encompass a number of different dimensions. There is the unfinished MDG agenda, as well as a clearer and more comprehensive and integrated focus on economic and environmental sustainability, as well as a new and absolutely critical focus on the enabling environment, ranging from the peace and security to more effective governance structures and the need to foster a more enabling global environment, and finally on multi-stakeholder partnerships and contributions. It should be noticed that in all of this, the SDGs offer an agenda which is not only inclusive, that is leaving no one behind across various dimensions, but also universal, across countries, albeit with differentiated responsibilities and levels of ambition and time. These opportunities and priorities for STI. Building on the lessons learned from the implementation of the MDGs. We think that with the SDGs, there are a number of areas with an explicit focus on science, technology, and innovation. Take, for example, goals 9 and 7. Goal 9 focuses on the objective to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and socialization, and foster innovation. While goal 17 more explicitly talks about access to innovation and to technology through North-South, South-South, and triangular cooperation. It talks about promoting development, transfer, dissemination, and division of environmentally sound technology to developing countries. And it talks, even more importantly, about a concept referred to as technology bank and STI capacity building in developing countries. And I think these are very lofty goals, but I'll just try to mention a couple of most things that need to happen if these goals are to happen. The first one is the leadership. I think that's where really where you stand and where you come from and what you do every day counts. Without your leadership and focus on fostering science, technology, and innovation, coupled with integrated planning and solutions, development, cooperation, financing, and partnerships cannot be effective. That's a fact. Even as our countries grow, they will not necessarily be transformed or be able to bridge the gap with the now developed countries, or even move upward from the categories of lower middle income countries to middle income countries and to upper middle income countries. I think yes, simply put, leadership counts. And what is encompassed in leadership is not just the visioning, but also the focus on policy choices that do not do injustice to tomorrow or to those left behind today, but focus on how to do more with less and how to move ahead more efficiently in terms of making full use of technologies and capabilities that are adapted to our needs and priorities. But leadership alone wouldn't get you there. The second most important thing is planning, long-term planning and visioning. And that's where the space that is offered by the SDG discussions to how we domesticate the SDGs become essential. And again, that's where leadership will come. How you participate in making sure that during the domestication conversations in your respective countries, that you're not sitting by the side, but that you're sitting on the table to ensure that science, technology is a critical part of the priorities in our national plans. I think that's important. And I think here again, long-term planning in itself is a challenge when you juxtapose that within our political calendars. I think for me, it will be interesting to hear from you how you've managed to tackle the issues of simply and complex transformational deliverables which take longer than a political cycle to come to fruition. This is particularly important with regard to investments in science and technology, wherein the results take time to come to fruition. And our political agendas are always construed around party manifestos that are around our political cycles, 4 years and 5 years. Research and development institutions and incentives, the continent will continue to lose many of its bright minds and those whose educational expenses have been paid for, subsidized through the public purse and public institutions to institutions abroad. And that's a key point. In the short term, there needs to be much linkage with the diaspora. And in the medium to longer term, Africa needs to be a place where the best and brightest stay and others come to thrive in our institutions to work for the common good. And I think that's a point that I really want us to think a little bit about while we deliberate and how we can actually make that happen. How do we keep our best and our brightest? And how do we create incentivized systems and institutions that attract the best and brightest so that we can together work really to make STI that value added for the SDGs. Then we come to financing and partnerships, because with the best leadership, with the best plans, if you don't have the financing, if you don't have the kind of partnerships that you need to leverage, it wouldn't happen. In addition to the various issues that I've just discussed above, in this context, there is a need for adequate, timely, and performance incentivizing flow of resources. Adequate, timely, and performance-based incentivizing flow of resources from the central to the federal government to institutions. Our institutions cannot be left bereft of funds and enabling incentive structures. We've seen that for too long. Further, there is room for a much deeper engagement with the private sector because we need to diversify our partnerships. We can no longer count on governments alone to drive and create that exciting environment for STI to flourish. We need to engage the private sector when it comes to incentivizing innovation, because it cannot just be for free. There has to come a reward and there has to come a profit for that. There are many global businesses which view Africa as a new frontier and are looking to partner and invest and offer solutions. We need to find ways to offer incentives which go beyond our markets and our natural resources to encompass our talent, our human resources, and to build the products that are sold in the continent. And lastly, participation, transparency, and accountability are so key and also good for revenue mobilization needed to achieve these ambitious goals and strategies. And really that's where your leadership comes to make sure that we work in environments that are transparent, that we work in environments that encourage participation, broad-based, and work in environments that demystifies STI and makes it available to the ordinary folks. Thank you.
Thank you for the excellent presentation. We'll now have a very short video clip, about 3 to 5 minutes. Whilst you search through, please can you put up the next presentation, please? Doc, the next presentation. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to present in French. So please, for anglophones, please take the headphones. Voilà, merci. Il m'a été demandé de présenter donc la stratégie en matière de sciences, la stratégie africaine en matière de sciences, technologie et innovation. Et donc pas le titre qui a été indiqué dans le programme. Mais dans le discours de Ambali, tout à l'heure du professeur Ambali, il a bien tracé les différents éléments qu'il faut prendre en compte dans l'agenda post-2015, à savoir qu'il y a un agenda 2063 de l'Union africaine, donc, qui trace la vision à long terme du continent, donc, pour son développement socio-économique. et que aussi la science, la technologie et l'innovation constituent un des piliers de cet agenda. Voilà, donc je vais donc très rapidement donner un bref aperçu de la situation de l'Afrique dans le monde entier en matière de sciences et technologies, et du chemin parcouru, la vision de l'Union africaine et parler de CISA. Donc comme je n'ai que 10 minutes, donc je vais essayer d'aller très rapidement dans ces trucs. Il est toujours bon, allez-y, next. Ce n'est pas pour donner une image sombre, comme l'avait dit tout à l'heure Madame la Présidente de l'Afrique, mais c'est seulement donner la situation de l'Afrique en matière de sciences et technologies. Mais ici, il faut aussi prendre ça de façon positive. De façon positive parce que maintenant, nous pouvons avoir des données sur l'Afrique grâce, par exemple, au programme ASTI, qui était un programme du plan d'action consolidé. Bien avant, on n'avait que du vide dans la carte de l'Afrique. Maintenant, nous pouvons, par exemple, avoir des données qui portent sur, par exemple, l'intensité de la recherche. Donc, c'était 1% qui avait été demandé aux pays africains, mais jusqu'à présent, aucun des pays n'a pratiquement pas atteint cet objectif. Et donc, si vous regardez bien la carte qui est là, que c'est l'Afrique reste encore un continent qui investit le moins en matière de recherche ici. On va aller encore descendre. Aussi, en matière de ressources humaines, on parle de développement du capital humain. Mais ici, en matière de recherche aussi, quand on regarde la densité des chercheurs, c'est-à-dire le nombre de chercheurs par million d'habitants, il y a toujours que cette densité est très faible. Il faudra dire que très peu de chercheurs. Donc pourquoi on montre ces deux éléments? Parce que ce sont des éléments importants pour la production de la connaissance. Investir en sciences, technologie, d'abord sur le plan financier, mais en même temps sur le plan des ressources humaines. Et c'est capital. Allez-y. Oui, next. Là, c'est seulement pour montrer la faible contribution de l'Afrique en matière de production du savoir. Et donc, si on regarde bien, on est là, mais on ne nous voit pas. Voilà. C'est parce que, d'abord, ça c'est la production, c'est en fait les publications, la connaissance codifiée. Certes, on a des connaissances endogènes, tout à l'heure on a bien dit ça, mais en matière de production scientifique, on n'est pas là, mais on note quand même une amélioration par rapport à ces dernières années, avec la production de l'observatoire. Excusez-moi, je ne me suis pas présenté au début. C'est donc, vous m'excusez, parce que c'est les 10 minutes qui m'ont un peu pris dans la tête et c'est pour ça que je ne me suis pas présenté. Mais je le ferai, je pense, à la fin, pour ne pas couper l'élan. Allez-y. Next. Oh, you have to speak. Donc, en fait, ici, on va seulement, c'est tout le monde un aperçu du chemin qui a été parcouru, du rêve et de l'ambition des Africains jusqu'à nos jours. Je ne vais pas, en fait, parler de tout ça. On a parlé de plan d'action de Lagos, il y a eu Morovia, il y a eu le plan d'action consolidé qui a été vraiment le premier plan en matière de sciences technologies en Afrique qui a été exécuté et qui a eu donc des résultats. Et donc c'est sur cette base qu'on est maintenant arrivé à la stratégie. On peut y aller parce que next. Voilà. Toutefois, on peut dire pendant tout ce trajet, il y a eu des barrières. L'instabilité politique qu'on a depuis, avec les programmes d'ajustement structurel de nos pays. Il faut dire aussi qu'on méconnaît nos systèmes nationaux d'innovation. Ça est depuis très longtemps. Il y a aussi une dépendance de l'extérieur en termes de financement, que ça soit en matière de sciences, que ça soit aussi sur le plan économique ailleurs, donc il y a une dépendance vers l'extérieur. Il y a aussi une adéquation avec les priorités nationales et régionales, puisque quand on dépend de l'extérieur, généralement, l'orientation est beaucoup plus axée sur les objectifs, par exemple, de ce qui finance. il y a aussi une absence critique, une absence de masse critique. On en parle aussi dans beaucoup de domaines. Actuellement, on parle de post-2015. Dans post-2015, on va parler de changement climatique. On va parler de grands enjeux mondiaux, mais au niveau africain, la masse critique qui doit quand même contribuer, on n'en a pas. Ça, c'est une des réalités. Et voilà. Donc, next. Voilà. Donc, maintenant, il y a quand même des opportunités, tout le monde l'a dit, et que donc cette opportunité, c'est que quand même, il faut dire, là, c'est des textes de Martin Diop, qui est le vice-président de la Banque mondiale pour la région de l'Afrique, qui dit que, en fait, qu'il y aura plus de 50% de la population qui aura moins de 25 ans. Donc, pour la prochaine décennie, il y aura 11 millions de jeunes de cette région qui entreront sur le marché du travail. Donc, il faut pouvoir donc saisir cette opportunité de cette dividende démographique. Et donc, si cette dividende démographique n'est pas bien exploitée, nous pouvons, disons, dire que nous ratons le coche, puisqu'il y aura beaucoup de populations actives en ce moment-là. Donc, allez, next. Là, c'est pour dire seulement le fossé, pour montrer comment la population augmente et par rapport à la technologie. Nous voyons bien que c'est une croissance qui est presque exponentielle, où, par exemple, là, ça va très vite, et on est en train vers le monde du mobile, Internet, et nous, on doit aller aussi très vite pour combler ce fossé technologique. Depuis la réforme agraire jusqu'à maintenant au mobile, maintenant nous parlons des big data, donc les données volumineuses, donc on doit quand même aller très vite pour atteindre ce truc. Allez. Voilà, donc j'en arrive maintenant à la STISA, qui s'appuie sur la vision de l'Union africaine, qui est de faire de l'Afrique un continent où il y a l'intégration, un continent prospère, paisible, et une Afrique dirigée par ses propres citoyens, représentant une force dynamique sur l'échiquier mondial. Ça, c'est la vision. Et donc, comme l'a dit tout à l'heure le professeur Ambali, dans l'agenda 2063, la science-technologie constitue un des piliers. Et donc, la STI doit jouer donc son rôle fondamental dans la mise en œuvre de cette vision 2063. Et donc, la mission ici, c'est donc d'accélérer la transition de l'Afrique d'une économie qui est basée surtout sur les ressources naturelles, vers une économie fondée sur le savoir et tirée vers le haut par l'innovation. Ça, c'est la mission. Mais on verra que quand même, on a eu beaucoup d'engagement, beaucoup d'ambition, mais jusqu'à présent, je pense, au niveau de la mise en œuvre, nous avons beaucoup de choses à apprendre. Voilà. Donc ici, pour dire que cette stratégie vient du plan d'action consolidé. Le plan d'action consolidé qui a été donc lancé en 2005, et je pense que Prof. Ambali fait partie des éditeurs de ce plan, et donc ça a été l'occasion donc de lancer un plan sur la science, technologie et l'innovation. Et donc il y avait 3 piliers stratégiques. Il y avait le renforcement des capacités, la production de connaissances, l'innovation technologique. Et donc il y avait 5 programmes majeurs. Et comme je l'ai dit tantôt, un des programmes qui constitue à collecter des données et donc à produire des indicateurs, c'est puis ASTI. Et c'est ça qui permet maintenant, au moins au niveau de l'Afrique, d'avoir des données sur les ressources humaines qui sont allouées à la recherche, des dépenses à la recherche et aussi sur l'innovation. Et ce programme aussi a permis de mettre en place beaucoup de centres d'excellence. Donc, il faut dire qu'il y a eu des résultats avec le plan d'action. Et donc, c'est du plan maintenant qu'on va aller vers une stratégie. La stratégie, donc, STISA, qui est en phase avec l'agenda 2063. En fait, c'est une stratégie qui va être exécutée en 5 phases. Et comme l'agenda 2063, c'est 50 ans, donc ici, c'est 5 phases de 10 ans. Donc, la première phase, donc, c'est la STISA 2024, à l'horizon donc 2024. Et cette stratégie est basée donc sur les leçons et sur l'expérience déjà acquise à partir donc de la mise en œuvre du plan d'action consolidé. S'appuie sur 4 piliers ici. Il s'agit maintenant de développer d'abord des infrastructures. En même temps, développer des compétences. Stimuler l'esprit d'initiative. C'est-à-dire, là, c'est l'entrepreneuriat et l'innovation. Mais en même temps, créer un environnement qui est propice aux activités de sciences, technologies. Donc, ce sont ces piliers-là qui sont pratiquement des préalables pour, par exemple, cette stratégie. Il y aura maintenant, ces priorités de la stratégie sont catégorisées en systèmes, comme l'a dit tout à l'heure Ambali. Nous avons d'abord la réduction de la pauvreté. Nous avons aussi la prévention et lutter contre les maladies, développer la communication aussi bien physique qu'intellectuelle, sauvegarder l'espace, vivre ensemble et donc créer de la richesse. Donc ce sont là ces priorités. Maintenant, dans chaque priorité, il doit y avoir des domaines de recherche. Parce que là, le problème c'est quoi? C'est de passer des priorités en des programmes, comme on appelle des programmes mobilisateurs. Et donc pour chaque, par exemple, priorité, il faudra donc développer des domaines, des programmes de recherche. Là, c'est des exemples qui ont été donnés ici, donc pour la colonne 2, où on a des domaines de recherche ou d'innovation, donc pour chaque priorité. Et maintenant, ici, un cas est pris, c'est le cas de l'eau, et par exemple, tout ce qu'il faut faire en matière d'eau pour, en fait, atteindre ces objectifs. Voilà. Donc ici, comme j'ai dit, la définition des priorités, généralement, relève de la décision politique. Et maintenant, là, c'est les domaines clés. J'en ai déjà parlé. Je pense qu'on peut passer à ça. Allez-y. OK. Voilà. Donc, voilà le tableau récapitulatif où des priorités, on va aller directement vers les programmes. Donc, du niveau stratégique où on a nos objectifs et pour spécifiques, nos objectifs stratégiques, on doit aller vers pratiquement les activités. Les programmes qui doivent. Donc, c'est des programmes mobilisateurs qui doivent être traduits aussi en programmes de recherche-développement. Et donc, nous avons plusieurs niveaux ici. Next, voilà. Et donc, la mise en œuvre de cette stratégie doit se faire à 3 niveaux. Niveau national, parce qu'en fait, ce qu'il faut dire, la stratégie, c'est la stratégie des pays membres de l'Union africaine. C'est notre stratégie. Donc la stratégie doit être d'abord exécutée au niveau national, aussi au niveau régional et au niveau continental. Mais il faut voir la stratégie comme étant un cadre d'orientation pour les pays et pour les régions. Donc un pays peut avoir des priorités vraiment, des priorités spécifiques et locales, mais ici, la CISA donne le cadre de référence à partir duquel le pays peut s'appuyer pour pouvoir donc être cohérent avec la politique qui est menée au niveau continental. C'est cette cohérence qu'on cherche. Quand on regarde dans les pays, pratiquement, c'est les mêmes priorités qu'on retrouve. C'est la pauvreté, c'est un problème de santé, c'est un problème d'éducation, un problème de communication. Donc, en fait, nous avons pratiquement les mêmes problèmes. Maintenant, dans le temps, comme je l'ai dit tantôt, le plan est divisé en 5 parties. Ici, c'est pour l'agenda 2063 de l'Union africaine. Allez-y. Next. Next. Voilà. Ici, donc, la première phase, il faut dire que nous sommes dans la première phase de CISA et actuellement, c'est l'élaboration donc du plan opérationnel de cette stratégie qui est actuellement en train d'être faite. Back. OK. Donc ici, donc, la première phase, comme j'ai dit, c'est la mise en place des institutions et donc de l'élaboration aussi du plan opérationnel. Maintenant, il y a la phase maintenant du développement et de l'exécution de la série de programmes mobilisateurs. Donc, des priorités, on va vers des programmes mobilisateurs, mais ici, il y aura 3 phases. À chaque étape sera donc exécutée en 3 ans et sera évaluée pour permettre après de pouvoir entamer une seconde phase de programme mobilisateur. Et donc là, vous avez 3 séries. de programme mobilisateur. Et en même temps, à la fin, il y aura une évaluation finale. Mais l'évaluation se fera donc au cours de la mise en œuvre, on me dit, pour chaque série de programmes mobilisateurs. Next. Voilà. J'ai parlé des actions qui sont requises pour pouvoir avoir une fondation robuste en sciences, technologies. Donc c'est mettre à niveau d'abord, revaloriser les infrastructures africaines. Nous devons accroître les compétences techniques et professionnelles. Et nous devons stimuler l'innovation et l'esprit d'entrepreneuriat, créer un environnement favorisant les STI, bâtir une culture scientifique. Je pense ce matin, l'un des orateurs a parlé du développement de la culture scientifique, qui est quand même un élément important, quand même, si on veut avoir un développement basé sur la science. Car il faudrait créer cette culture dès le bas âge. Renforcer les systèmes de régulation et de propriété intellectuelle. Next. Voilà un peu l'architecture pour la gouvernance, où il y a d'abord la structure de prise de décision, avec toutes les institutions qui sont là au niveau continental, avec la Commission de l'Union africaine, avec le Conseil exécutif, et donc tous les organes qui sont au niveau de la prise de décision, au niveau continental. Et après, il y a le niveau mise en œuvre avec l'agence de coordination et de planification du NEPAD qui doit donc coordonner donc toute la mise en œuvre, par exemple, de ces activités, avec, en collaboration avec les communautés économiques régionales et les pays, et en même temps les partenaires. Mais ici, en même temps, il faut noter la contribution quand même du secteur privé qui est essentielle pour la mise en œuvre de cette stratégie. Next. Voilà. Là, pour le financement, on n'en parlera pas, mais c'est qu'on donne un peu une idée des potentialités africaines. Si on devait, par exemple, investir les 1% dont on a parlé du PIB, on prend seulement l'année 2013. Il y aurait eu en Afrique, il y aurait eu 23 milliards donc, de dollars. Si on prenait 1% seulement du PIB, si on prend l'année 2013, c'est-à-dire investir en recherche et développement. Ça, c'est les dépenses. Quand on parle des 1%, ce n'est plus le budget, mais les dépenses. Qu'est-ce qui a été dépensé dans les activités de recherche et de développement. Et donc on a pris l'exemple ici des cinq pays les plus riches. Et quand on regarde leur contribution à 1%, c'est presque plus de la moitié, en fait, pour le continent. On prend l'Afrique du Sud, l'Algérie, l'Angola, l'Égypte et le Nigeria. Au total des 5 pays. Pour dire un peu, s'il faut investir, où est-ce qu'on serait? Puisque pour tous les pays qui sont émergents et développés sont à plus de 1%. Et donc, ils tendent vers les 2%. Voilà. Allez, next. Voilà. Ce qu'il faut dire aussi, il y aura un mécanisme de suivi et d'évaluation. Voilà. Là, c'est vraiment essentiel. Avant même de pouvoir mettre en œuvre, il faudra créer un système de suivi et d'évaluation. Et donc, ce système de suivi et d'évaluation est en train d'être actuellement élaboré, mais il y aura la participation, je pense, de toutes les parties prenantes, parce que ça ne se fait pas seulement au niveau des bureaux. Donc là, ça demande un consensus sur les objectifs et sur, en fait, les cibles qu'on veut atteindre. Et donc, ça demande vraiment une participation de toutes les parties prenantes. Mais aussi, on voudrait créer un système cohérent de suivi et évaluation, qu'il soit dans l'ensemble des États membres et en même temps au niveau régional, pour être cohérent dans ce système de suivi. Donc, le NEPAD et l'Observatoire devront donc se charger du suivi des indicateurs de performance. Voilà. Voilà, la communication est quand même considérée comme un élément très important de cette stratégie. Et donc, ça doit constituer un segment qui a été vraiment, comment dirais-je, développer pour que quand même tout un chacun se retrouve dans la stratégie. Voilà. Voilà. Maintenant, pour conclure, c'est que c'est une stratégie qui a été adoptée par les pays africains et donc qui demande la contribution de beaucoup de segments de la société. À savoir d'abord les pays, d'abord les communautés économiques régionales, donc les institutions continentales, régionales, les organisations internationales, le secteur privé, les laboratoires, et donc tout cela qui peuvent en fait contribuer donc à promouvoir la science et la technologie au niveau du continent. Next. Voilà, next. Avant de dire merci, comme je disais, je m'appelle Almami Conté, donc je suis la commission de l'Union africaine, mais plus spécifiquement à l'Observatoire africain de la science, de la technologie et de l'innovation, qui est basé à Malabo, en Guinée équatoriale. Voilà, merci de votre aimable attention.
Thank you, Mr. Conte, for the excellent presentation. We recognize the fact that there are a number of high-profile dignitaries here, and we would like to acknowledge everybody. So please, we'll have the first batch of acknowledgement of the high-level dignitaries. But please, if your name hasn't been mentioned, please get in touch with the lady, and then we'll make sure that we are duly acknowledged. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have in our midst, as I already mentioned, some key personalities. We've mentioned ministers and some of the parliamentarians from the Pan-African Parliament. I would go on and mention also some key representatives of the various ministers that we invited who were not able to come. Currently, we have in our midst the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Science and Technology of Nigeria, who is currently the minister in charge, as they have not appointed ministers in the federal states. So we have here with us Madam Winifred Oye Ita. And then we also have in our midst our parliamentarians from Ghana, and we have Honorable Juliana Azuma Mensah, Honorable Atabu Afo. We have Honorable Joseph Yiletre. He's not in. Okay, I don't know if I have missed anybody yet, but I will come back to. Also, we have in our midst the some permanent secretaries as well, as I mentioned earlier. From we have Senegal, Dr. Nohin Diaby. The Gambia, Dr. Chino Omar Bari. We have from Zimbabwe, we have the minister from Zimbabwe, I've already acknowledged her. And we have a representative from the ministry as well, Rungano Karimanzaira, if I'm not pronouncing the names right. We have Tanzania, Professor Evelyn Mbedi. From Togo, Professor Koko Kwame. I will come back. The Terminator said, I shall be back.
Please, we can have the next. If it's not yet in, then we would call on Professor Hubert Geisen, setting the stage for sustainability science for Africa 2015. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, honorable ministers, parliamentarians, distinguished participants. A very good afternoon. Of course, the idea of this session one is to provide some food for thought and also to feed the discussions later in the program. So what I would like to do is basically address two key questions. The first being, if we talk about the SDGs, what are the key challenges that lie ahead of us towards that sustainable world out there? And the second is, what is then the role of science, technology, and innovation in making that happen? And how could it be if we manage to do that? How does it look like? So it is about big picture questions. The big picture is that if we look at our planet today, that we live in a world that is alarmingly out of balance. And this imbalance relates to basically two imbalances. The first one being, of course, the severe imbalance between people and planet Earth. That's what we refer to when we talk about sustainable development. The second one is the persistent imbalance between people. The big inequalities, which is a big challenge everywhere. Next. So, looking at these big two questions of imbalances, let me start with the last one, the imbalance between people. And it's symbolized here in this photo, taken somewhere in Sao Paulo, I believe, in Brazil. On the right side of the fence, the well-off, and a statistic here, the 1% of richest people own 40% of global assets. And then on the left side of the fence, the not have. So the 50% poorest people globally own 1% of global wealth only. And did you know that women earn only 10% of global income? Next. Then inequalities between people also relate to services. Modern medicine has found answers to many diseases, but we see every year millions of people die from curable disease, oftentimes easily curable disease. And also in terms of food security, there is that big imbalance and inequality. Many nations produce surpluses of food, but yet we have close to 1 billion people that go with hunger every day. Next. So then the other imbalance between people and planet, and we know it's climate change, but it's not only climate change. Next, we go a bit quicker now through a few slides. It's just a photo show, actually. Deforestation, you see the devastation that happens if we cut our forests, and it leads to biodiversity loss. Next. And we create massive pollution of air, soil, and water. Next. And our oceans, we always forget about our oceans. It's probably because we are a terrestrial species. But the oceans cover 2/3 of this planet, and they are at risk. And we need to develop more science to understand what's happening there. Next. And then the abstraction, the over-abstraction of environmental resources, here symbolized by how do we use water. And you see how steeply the use of fresh water has grown over the last 100 years. And look at this, the left curve. 70% of all the fresh water that we use globally goes to produce only our food. Now, is that sustainable? Where do we go from here? If in 2050 we need to feed 9 billion people, we would have eradicated hunger, and we would have all shifted to a diet that is higher in protein and meat. Where would this lead us to in terms of freshwater use? We're in a dead-end road, and we better realize it, and we start acting on it. Next. And of course, the big factor in the equation here is people. And you see the explosion in the growth of people on this planet. We are heading fast towards 9 billion in 2050. And also note that the yellow curve, the yellow part, is the growth of the population in developing countries. And all the growth today is accounted for by developing countries. Next. And this is really, in summary, the imbalance between planet and people. The ecological carrying capacity of our planet has been surpassed. We're currently at about 1.3 planet Earth. That is, the renewable resources of planet Earth are consumed at the rate of 1.3 of its replenishment. Well, the last time I checked, there is only one planet Earth, so we have to come down to that level again. Next. So this is really a defining moment. This year we're transferring from a big agenda, the MDGs, towards a new agenda, the SDGs, the post-2015. And that requires big picture thinking. Next. It means that we need to zoom out and look at the big questions, the big problems. I've given here a list of 10 key global challenges as I see them, and all of them are captured in the SDGs. I'm not going to lead you through them, just to say that those in white are typical challenges of developing countries, but all the others in yellow are challenges of all countries in the planet. And that means the new agenda is an agenda for all. It's no longer like the MDGs, an agenda for developing countries. It is an agenda for all countries. It sets the scene for collaboration, partnerships. If the UN hadn't been invented yet, we better establish it now, and we need to cooperate. Next. So as I said, it's time for big picture thinking. Zoom out and see what is happening with these two imbalances. And I symbolize that via this picture. We can all see what it is. It's a gun, it's a symbol of killing and all the bad that we have of violence. But zoom out, the next shows the big picture is actually the opposite. It's a monument against violence, against killing. This was produced by a Swedish artist in 1983 in recognition of the killing of his good friend John Lennon. And if you ever go to New York, you will find this at the foot of the UN building. In the background, you see the UN building. So, big picture thinking. The big picture of the new agenda is that actually the new agenda is a merger of three agendas. It is the unfinished business of the MDGs. It is the big question of sustainable development and moving towards a green economy. And third, it is the big question of peace and security. And if you look at these sub-agendas, you can recognize that these are intimately interrelated. Next. So the question is, what is the role of science, technology, and innovation in all that complex challenges that we see? And I would like to think, big picture thinking again is also about looking around. First you look back to the past. How have we used science, technology, and innovation in the past? Where are we now? And how can we learn from that and look to the future? The past, we have used science and technology to trigger an industrial revolution. We had a medical revolution in the late 19th century. It was the discovery of bacteria by Louis Pasteur. That was followed by the development mid last century of one of the biggest sectors now, the pharmaceutical sector. We had the Green Revolution in the second half of last century because we had reached a ceiling for food production that would allow to feed only 6 billion people. The Green Revolution has helped. We are presently in an ICT revolution. Look at the left picture. This is a computer lab in a university that had a fraction of the computing capacity of this little laptop. Next. And what is the future? We don't know. What is the next science-based revolution? Will it be biotech? Will it be nanotech? Will it be combinations of these with high-speed computing? I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I know what we need. What we need is a science-based revolution to its sustainable development. Next. And then we need to look at the past and learn lessons. We can recognize from all these past revolutions that were science-based that these brought enormous economic growth and welfare and prosperity for many, but many people were left out, and they are now addressed under the MDGs. And also the benefits came at huge environmental cost. And what we need, therefore, is a sustainable development revolution that is science-based, and therefore we need to prioritize science and technology in our policies. We need to use a much more forward-looking approach when mobilizing science in order to minimize the externalities and to maximize the benefits. And we need to apply inter- and transdisciplinary approaches, the so-called sustainability science. Let me remind, the previous speaker already mentioned it, that investment in science, technology, R&D is key. The OECD recommends 3% of the GDP to be invested in R&D. Next. And we saw from the same map that in Africa there's no country that meets that target. In fact, most countries in Africa are even below 0.5%. Next. Now back to the big question issues. I would say these three are the key questions of the century. If we get these three right, we get all the rest right, and I will explain why. Energy, water, and food. Next. If we get these three right, we have solved climate change. There's so much discussion about climate change, but the triggers of climate change were these three. We would have resolved biodiversity loss. We would have rebalanced global cycles of key elements. We would have stopped ocean acidification, and we would have had sustainable water and ecosystem management if we would get these three right. So what we need is new energy, we need new water, and we need new food. Next. So what we really need is a vision. I call it Vision 2050, but the African Union has its vision, Vision 2063, a 50-year down the road, which is a reasonable period, where you develop a vision where for the world, by mid this century, we should be able, for 9 billion people, to live decent quality of life within the planet's limited resources. That's the big picture question. That's the big picture vision. Next. So that brings me to the power of imagination. And back to John Lennon. You remember that famous song? It's not playing, but we will play it for you later. The big Imagine project should be launched, and the SDGs could be the basis of it. Imagine new energy. There are so many forms of new energy that we can develop, and yet there is so much resistance. Next. This will not happen overnight. It will take stages where we first will see a diversification of renewable energy resources. Then we will see a stage of competition and selection. And maybe a few will survive and make it and be the new energy resources of the future. Which one it is, again, don't ask me, I don't know. It could be from biotech, it could be an existing natural source, but it will be sustainable. Next. And then new water, think of it. Imagine how, if we would manage water better and more cleverly, how it could look like. I will give a presentation in the afternoon on water. So I won't tell you much more at this moment. Next. But then new food, you have wondered what is it? We're heading to lunch later. We will not have new food there, but we need it. New food needs to recognize that, again, we're in a dead-end road. We're using 70% of all the fresh water to produce our food. Where does it lead to? A lot of contamination and pollution, pesticides, fertilizer, eutrophication, algal blooms, fish kills, biodiversity loss. That's the food production system we have. Next. In fact, since the Neolithic Revolution, we haven't changed the way we produce food. 12,000 years ago, we decided to settle, and instead of hunting and gathering, we grow our food, agriculture, and it's still there. But these are the consequences. All the consequences for the environment are there. Next. New food is there. There are many. There are different solutions to food production. We could grow algae, because what we need essentially is calories and protein. By growing algae, we could do that. You can calculate that you need 3 times the surface of Portugal, and you can do it in the sea, in the ocean. So it wouldn't occupy arable land. You could also grow food in a laboratory. This is possible. The technology on the left, I did it as a young student in the lab. Tissue culture. You can grow the best beef cells, the best chicken breast in a petri dish. Now, if you scale that up, you do it in a factory, and you produce the best quality of meat for the world to be fed. Now, you think this is science fiction? Next. It's not. In September 2013, there was a project sponsored by one of the co-owners of Google, a project by the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands. They produced the first hamburger from tissue culture. This hamburger costed $330,000, growing all these layers of cells and bringing them together in a hamburger. I call it therefore the steak of the art. But imagine that transformational change comes at exponential speed. So this hamburger in 2060 will cost $1 and will taste very well, I hope. Next. So with that, I would say the sustainable future is within reach, and I thank you very much for your attention.
I think we can have the video after lunch, whilst they actually set it up. I'll give the 3 either questions or contributions to participants, and then we'll sum up and then go for lunch. No, for the next session. Yes, please. 3. So hands 1, a lady for gender balance. We don't want them to take only 10% of the discussion. Yes, to the third last. All right, we'll have only 2. Yes, please.
Do I need to start? Okay, whatever. My question goes to practically all of the speakers, and I'm asking the question just because the parliamentarians are here. My name is Paul. My name is Palma Masumbe Netongo from the University of Yaoundé 1, Cameroon. And I've not been acknowledged because I'm only representing a vice minister. But I was wondering, and I've been pondering over this question when I saw this news ad, when one of the richest people in Africa, I think if I'm not mistaken, the name I heard was Dangote, and that he was going to buy a team, an English football team called Arsenal. I don't know him personally. Maybe some of you, the parliamentarians here, know. But the figure I've just seen up there, I'm not sure would be up to 1/4 the price of Arsenal. And I'm just wondering if Prof. Hilbert, who was there speaking right now, could have a message to convey to such a rich African that investing that money, just 1/4 of it maybe, in research, in science and technology, could give him hamburgers that would not cost $33,000, but $1 in less than, maybe this time it will not even take us up to 2063, but maybe 2030. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Sandra Brito. I come from Mozambique. I'm here representing the Minister for Science and Technology, Higher Education and Vocational Education. I feel very proud to be here with this audience. So many ministers, it's a big responsibility I have when I go back home to let my minister know what is really happening here. So I'm really paying attention in writing everything. Also, I am not an English speaking and not even a French speaking. And then when we talk about an imbalance, this is where I would like to ask you to pay attention to that. I belong to one of the 5 Portuguese countries in Africa, and in this room there is not a translation for Portuguese even if you are here. So when we talk about imbalance between people, so think about the languages that we have. If you come to Mozambique, of course we are going to make sure that you can understand, because people will speak in English to you. But here in Ghana, I only can say Aquabra. That's the only word I learned. The other point I would like to think is also to see that we got exhorted to see what is happening in our continent. This is a rich continent when you talk about agriculture, because most of our countries are agriculture countries, and we don't have food. This is something strange. To say that what are we going to do is really a question that we don't know what to do. Or we probably should go and join efforts to see how can we face the challenges that we have. Probably we already have the solutions. Maybe we should come out from this conference with solutions at what can we do. In the past, in my country, we helped Zimbabwe to get independence. We helped South Africa to get independence, so we joined efforts. So why can we not think about joint efforts between us and see how can we face the challenges from the next years after 2015? In Mozambique, we have a new government. We just started in January, and my government started with a Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. So to see how can we assist the next periods. We also are addressing massively the training of capital, human capital. So, and the third thing is that we also are addressing energy programs and gas and oil, and also strengthening our efforts for vocational training. So this is some examples from practice that we are doing, and I'm here to find out if there is someone that would like to talk to me to see what are we doing. Maybe we can join efforts to face the challenges for the period 2015, and thank you.
We'll give the presenters a minute each to respond to the questions or the comments.
I'll just make a brief comment on funding research profit, because I think that's what Dangote is looking when he invests in Arsenal. He's seeing profit. And in my presentation, I did make allusion to trying to build innovative partnerships with private sector that intersect with venture capital where there's profit. So science cannot just be science for science sake, but there's got to be profit. When I looked at the evolution, science and evolution, at each point in time on the products on the market. I think that's key, that whatever we do as research, it should be something that ends up in the market, that makes improvements in the well-being of the people. That's where the investments will go towards private sector development.
Yeah, on the same, the question, why is the richest man of Africa investing in an English football club? Yeah, probably it's good business. So why can't we make science and technology business? In fact, I would say the proof is out there that it is. We have seen several economies, and I mentioned this morning the Asian tigers, turn around because they have consistently and dedicatedly invested in R&D, science, technology. But also if you look at the application areas of science, the strongest economic sectors in the world today have grown because of science, technology, and innovation. The energy sector as we know it today, it's not sustainable. This oil-based energy, but it has developed with a lot of science and technology. The food production system we have today is not sustainable for the coming decades, but it has been developed and via science and technology. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the biggest science and technology. It has happened in the past, so why can't we make this happen for sustainable development? And all these sectors now sustain to become the science-based solutions that are attractive, that generate business, that generate income, that boost economies, that provide livelihoods to people, that create jobs. That's what the green economy is about. So our challenge is to discuss about that and see how we, by prioritizing science, technology, and innovation, make this transition towards the green economy.
French, please. Je pense que l'investissement en sciences et technologies est maintenant reconnu comme l'a montré même mon prédécesseur. En fait, ici en Afrique, on a un problème d'opérationnalisation. C'est-à-dire, il y a beaucoup d'engagement, on parle de volonté politique, mais la volonté politique doit être accompagnée d'actions concrètes. Et donc, c'est à ce niveau la mise en œuvre et mettre l'investissement. Pour ne même pas donner l'exemple de Dangote, je donnerai l'exemple de tous les pays africains. On dit ces temps-ci que tous les pays africains ont une croissance supérieure à 5%. Mais pour autant, la distribution de ces richesses ne se fait pas de façon équitable. Et donc, on pourrait tout simplement réinvestir dans tous les secteurs, que ce soit le secteur de l'eau, de l'énergie, et ainsi de suite. Et cette croissance, elle est là. Et dit-on que c'est le continent du futur. Donc, peut-être, il y a Dangote est un businessman, c'est un homme d'affaires, mais il faut dire que le monde est presque guidé par une logique de profit, alors qu'on a besoin d'une logique distributive. Donc la logique de profit prend le dessus, comme au Brésil, où on voit 1% qui détient 40%. Et donc cette logique distributive, qui est quand même une des valeurs qu'on a ici en Afrique, n'est pas traduite au niveau, je veux dire, gouvernemental, au niveau nation, puisque cette logique de partage existe déjà. Cette logique est là, c'est des valeurs. Mais la logique de profit, comme j'ai dit, a pris le dessus. Donc Dangote est peut-être un exemple, parce que c'est un particulier, mais c'est un problème plutôt global. 1% du PIB, c'était depuis Lagos, depuis Cast Africa. Bon, c'est une question de volonté traduite en action, c'est-à-dire le vouloir. C'est le problème de leadership qui se pose après. Donc le leadership est aussi important. Voilà. Donc pour la deuxième question, je pense que Madame c'est Mozambique, hein? Oui. Je pense qu'elle a posé aussi une véritable question qui, quand même, il faut le dire au niveau continental, initiative où, par exemple, beaucoup de pays collaborent. parce que la collaboration est devenue un élément essentiel pour tout simplement lutter contre, surmonter tous ces défis qu'on vient de montrer, puisqu'il faudrait nécessairement une collaboration. Et donc le fait qu'il y ait une faible masse critique en Afrique, donc le capital humain est très faible, on a besoin donc de tout simplement collaborer pour essayer de voir des avantages compétitifs que d'autres pays ont par rapport aux autres. Voilà, merci bien.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, thank you so much for moderating this first session. It was very, very insightful and well done. So we would ask you to take your seat and we'll move straight to the next session just before lunch. We were supposed to have played a video for the first session. We'll play that later on. We're having some technical challenges. The next session, which is session 2, is a round table of ministers where we would have ministers or their representatives sit at the high table and discuss on the topic mobilizing STI for sustainable development in Africa. As is normally done, roundtable discussions are a platform where the ministers will just make some key statements in the various areas that they are coming from towards the topic. And so if you are a Minister of Communication, you will talk of how relevant STI in communication towards the SDG. So that we don't have a lot of repetition. So you would give key statements as directed, and after that, after your roundtable discussion, you can give a few minutes to other participants to contribute on some of the comments or statements you would have made. So I would first call the chair of this session, Honorable Dr. Beleselu. Madam, please, would you take your seat? And then I will also call the Honorable Minister of Science and Technology from Zimbabwe, Honorable Minister Opa Michunguri. Honorable Minister, please, can you join the high table? We also have the Honorable Minister of Communication, Science, Technology of Tanzania. Her representative is here. So the representative, please join. And then we would have the Deputy Minister of Education, Science and Technology of South Sudan, Honorable Bo Mekinyo. Honorable, please take your seat. And then we would have the Honorable Minister's representative, I know it's a representative here, of Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Gambia. Please join the high table. And then we would have the representative, well, the substantive Honorable Minister until the minister is appointed from the Ministry of Science and Technology, Nigeria, Madam Winifred Oyoita, sorry. And then, yes, you would fit there. One more chair. Yes. Honorable Madam, yes, you join. And we have one last person. Chair, yeah. Yeah. No, it's not that big. Our last panelist is from Senegal, the Minister of Education, Science and Research. His or her representative, can you join the table? Oh, yeah, it's my own colleague. Hi. So, welcome once again. Honorable Chair, Madam, your discussant for this session is Dr. Anthony Madukwe, a Science Program Specialist, UNESCO Regional Africa for West Africa, based in Senegal. And he will take his role as the discussant. So I thank you. I hand over.
Thank you very much. I'm highly delighted to chair this session. Again, delighted because I can see a lot of women at the high table here, which means that we are also expecting a lot of good things from the session. I also know that we've been seated for a very long time, and we want to take our rest after such a long day. As an adult educator, that's been my field of study. I know the absorption rate of adults. We get tired after a while. So I wouldn't like to talk much, but to go on to the program and invite the first presenter, who is Honorable Minister Opa Monchuguri from Zimbabwe, to make a submission. Madam, you're welcome.
Fellow African ministers and deputy ministers here present, members of parliament, representatives from UNDP, UNESCO, and AU, and also regional economic communities, eminent scientists from Africa and diaspora, captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen. My submission to you is going to focus mainly on highlights of the first UNESCO-sponsored Africa-Asia dialogue on science for sustainability in preparation for development post-2015, which was held in Harare, Zimbabwe from 4 to 5 March 2015. A total of 55 African experts comprising ministers, deputy ministers, representatives from AU, vice chancellors, deans of faculties, policymakers, senior government officials, development partners, and the media, drawn from 10 African countries, including Ethiopia, Equatorial Guinea, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, Mozambique, Senegal, South Africa, Zambia, also Zimbabwe. In addition, linked via video conference on 2 March 2015 were representation from Asia, Malaysia, Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, and Australia, and American Association for the Advancement of Science in the United States. This dialogue served as the very first think-tanking process in Africa in preparation for post-2015 addressing sustainability sciences in the various aspects of the developmental agenda in the two continents, Africa and Asia, premised on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And the key outcomes, I will start with the African dialogue. The meeting acknowledged that Africa was indeed endowed with vast natural resources, whose exploitation presented unique opportunities for rapid industrialization and sustained growth across the continent. However, a number of common challenges, priorities, and aspirations remain, particularly insofar as achieving sustainable socio-economic development through effective utilization of science, engineering, technology, and innovation, SETIs. Through SETI, opportunities for value addition and beneficiation would optimize the worth of Africa's vast natural resources to best advantage for national growth. Therefore, in support of the post-2015 agenda, there is need to match the human capital requirements to manage the development space within a competitive global village and rapid technology advances. To this end, the SDGs present great opportunities for economic development through application of sustainable science in all sectors at national, sub-regional, and regional levels. And as a way forward, the meeting established champions in niche areas to take the lead in research, development, and application of sustainable sciences through collaborative arrangements in the following key areas. In food area, Kenya; water, Zimbabwe; and energy, Ghana; development of strategies for the establishment of sustainable cities across Africa, South Africa was chosen. On the development of a comprehensive baseline database on science, technology, and innovation policy implementation at national level, UNESCO Global Science Policy and Innovation National Profiles, GOSPIN, Mozambique, Mauritius, Zambia, and Zimbabwe were chosen. Regarding the development of national systems of innovation, NSI, Mozambique, Mauritius, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe were chosen. And other issues that emerged include the following: urgent development of strategies and actions for science communication, development of regional and transboundary policies for effective exploitation and management of joint natural resources, enhance science policy industrial interface to address many of the SDGs, enhance synergies, partnerships, and collaboration of successful achievements and attainment of SDGs. Lastly, to monitor and evaluate development trends in Africa in order to advise governments on effective and timely attainment of SDGs. The outcomes from Asia and Africa dialogue. On the whole, the meeting took note of the development gap and starting point between Asia and African countries. As such, Asia submissions were premised on exchange of experiences, best practices, and knowledge ready to be shared in a number of global and regional endeavors in sustainable science initiatives. Offers were advanced in the targeted programmatic areas to engage and also share experiences with African experts in the following areas: enhance engineering and infrastructure maintenance standards through UNESCO Category 2 Center, International Science, Technology and Innovation Center, ISTIC, Kuala Lumpur, and projects supported by Malaysia's funds in trust. Water management in cities through UNESCO Category 2 centers, Regional Urban Water Management Tehran, and the Humid Tropic Center, Kuala Lumpur, soon to be established. Renewable energy through Kyoto University and Professor Ogati team contributing to Japan funds in trust supported project competence. Course materials are ready to be shared. On disaster risk reduction through Category 2 Center, International Center of Excellence for Water Hazard and Risk Management, ICHAM, in Tsukuba, and other institutes in Japan and in the region, and also through two major initiatives: the International Flood Initiative, Secretariat ICHAM, and the International Drought Initiative, Secretarial RUWM in Tehran. On education for sustainable development through UNESCO field offices in Asia and also United Nations University, UNU, which developed a postgraduate program in Asia and Africa on gender equity and equal opportunity through UNESCO field offices and network of chairs. On universities network through Japan Funds in Trust supported Activity Connect Asia in collaboration with Keio University in Japan. This submission from Africa-Asia Dialogue on the Sustainable Science were conducted in the spirit of the Asia-Africa Cooperation held in Bandung, Indonesia in 1955 and reaffirmed during the 60th anniversary in April 2015. I submit. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that brief but very important presentation on work done so far by various countries. Our next speaker, and I suggest we can sit here and talk. Our next speaker is Honorable Professor Makame Mbarawa from Tanzania. Madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, Honorable Ministers and parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen in the room. I'm here, my name is Professor Evelyn Mbede. I'm representing Professor Makame Mbarawa, who is the Minister of Communication, Science and Technology in Tanzania, in United Republic of Tanzania. I will probably not make a speech, but I will look at what have we been doing in Tanzania, looking at the post-millennium development goals. What was done in Tanzania, we had a consultation from the grassroots level on looking at the Millennium Development Goals, where have we achieved and where we haven't achieved. And during those consultations from the grassroots level upwards up to the national level, we came out with a number of issues which we really think that is what Tanzania needs to be. In summary, we came out with a number of points, including ensuring a strong ownership of development agenda, consolidating what has been achieved. That means as a nation, we need to have a very strong ownership of the national agenda, and consolidating what has been achieved during the efforts of including the improving of the social service delivery. The other thing which came strongly was the capacity development at all levels, including enhancing skills through vocational training. And also we realized that we needed to do more in terms of fostering STI in efforts to achieve sustainable development. And the other thing which we realized was improving the state of infrastructure. We need to continue, though we have achieved something, but we need to continue with that one in terms of road, in terms of energy, port facilities, and the like. And also we realized that we need the sustainable management of the natural resources if we are managing them, but we need more to look for sustainable ways of managing of our natural resources. And the other thing is that we realize that we need to transform our agriculture through science, technology, and innovation in order to reduce poverty, so that it can contribute more in the reduction of poverty and in the food security. Now, in terms of science, in terms of STI, looking at the post-millennium development goals, most of the key areas which we have come with are most what have been discussed this morning, and I'm not going to go through them. But in terms of science and technology, the government has been really relooking at its national STI, it's the National Innovation System, with the intention of repositioning it so that it can sit in the position where it can drive more the socio-economic development. We've been doing the National Science, Technology, and Innovation Reform. This one we started in 2007 with the assistance of UNESCO, or working together with UNESCO in partnership, but several other development partners have come into now, including the Finnish government and the World Bank program. So during this process of national innovation system reform, we have gone through the regular OECD methodology of looking at the background where we are now, and looking, we had an external review of working with the external partners and trying to foresight where we want to go, using our Vision 2025, where we want to be a mid-income nation. And then we had a synthesis report, synthesizing of exactly what should be done step by step in order to be able to reach to where we want to go by mainstreaming science and technology into our national development agenda. What we've come out with is we have come out with a recommendation which are divided into four groups. One is looking at our policy and our regulatory framework. We think that Tanzania has many individual components of national innovation system which are working in silos, and we need to integrate them through policy review. We have got a lot of overlapping policies which we need to review them, and also we need to reposition our science and technology so that innovation can be filtered in all sectors of the national development. Also, we have inadequate coordination of STI policies during formulation and during implementation. The agricultural policy, sometimes it doesn't talk to the health policy, while we want food security and nutrition is important. Or sometimes we have got the water policy, which is not talking to the STI policy. So definitely all those are among the issues we need to work through. And the other thing which we came in terms of policy and regulatory is inadequate oversight function of main institutions, including the parliament, the academia, and the professional bodies, to be able to see through that innovation is filtering in all our system of governance and also economical development. The other thing which we realized was looking at our research systems. We found that looking at our research systems, the lack of mechanism for priority setting of technology and technology foresighting, we need to work on that seriously. Inadequate funding resource and accountability mechanisms, we need to work seriously in those ones in order to be able, that means even though we put little money, putting money is not enough unless we make sure that money is utilized properly, really to make a difference in the national development. Inadequate focus in enterprise and business, weak institutional review and self-assessment mechanism, inadequate linkages and coordination between research, government, universities, and industry, and also inadequate incentive system for researchers in order to make them be able to work and contribute to the socio-economic development. And in terms, the third group of setbacks which we found was in terms of business and entrepreneurship systems, where we found that there's a dominance of informal SMEs, and so the government is working on the ways of formalizing so that those informal systems can become formal, so that they can contribute to the socio-economic development. In this particular case, where we have got a lot of informal system, in terms of taxing, them contributing to the tax system of the government has been difficult. And also there was low propensity for innovation, business at workplace, and also inadequate financial facilitation for SME growth, and unfavorable public procurement regime, which can be there to motivate innovation in the country. And the other area which we found we had inadequacies is in terms of human capability development, not the human capacity alone, but the human capability as a whole. Here we found that there's an adequate linkage between the human development structure and the industrial development on foresighting, and this we need to work towards this, achieving this. Inadequate curricula that support entrepreneurship and innovation within our education system from the grassroots level up to university level. Inadequate industrial experience and competence of faculty members, and ineffective industrial training programs for our graduates. Now, most of these we have already started working on. Some of the policies we have already started reviewing, and we are in the process of preparing the national, or of reviewing our national science and technology and innovation policy. We are relooking at our Science Act. We are formulating the new Science Act, which will promote mainstreaming of science and technology and innovation in the national development. But also we are looking at the reposition our legal framework of the national system of innovation, because most of our national system of innovation was formed during the colonial time with the purpose which were relevant at that particular time. So we have to reposition it relevant to support the innovation at this particular stage of development where we are. And the other thing which we are working seriously is accelerating the funding for STI. In the current government, we have had an effort where we had increased funding for STI. When I say increase, that we moved from something like equivalent to less than $1 million to something equivalent to $20 million in 2011-2013. But instead of increasing, because we were depending on the budgetary allocation.
The Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, honorable ministers and parliamentarians.
Instead of increasing, because of the allocation, it kept decreasing. The first year we budgeted about $20 million, and then we got only $12 million. The next year it went down to 7, and the next year it went down to 3, and the next year it went down to 0. So we are looking for ways of creating a science fund which will be not depending on the release from the government. So we have already started working for a special fund where part of the money which is coming from communication is going to go directly into science and technology. So each 2 cents of the money we spend on telephone is going to go to science and technology. We are still working for other avenues of contributing to this special fund for science and technology. And the other thing, we are looking at creating a special fund for innovation, which until now we didn't have. So thank you very much, Chair. That is what I had to share.
Thank you very much. We have to set a ground rule, and every presenter has 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Or let me allow the ladies to do 10 minutes and the men 3 minutes. Thank you. Our next presenter is Nigeria. No, I want to do Nigeria first. They are my neighbors. Ministry of Science and Technology, Nigeria, represented by Mrs. Winifred Ikanem Oyo. Ita. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, honorable members of Parliament, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have a written presentation either in hard or soft copies, because I had the impression that it was going to be a discussion group. But I'll just say a few words about what my country is doing in the STI, as regards our STI policy, and how we hope to move from the MDGs to the SDGs in here in 2015. We have the Science, Technology and Innovation Policy that was approved in 2012 for improved enhancement of the STI, and it's expected to address the needs of industrial and socio-economic development of the country, and while expanding collaboration with other sectors. We discovered that most of the key sectors in the country were operating in uniformly, just parallel to each other. There wasn't any cross-fertilization of ideas, and the science, technology, research and development aspect of national development was not being felt by other sectors. The STI policy is being driven by the NRIC, the National Research and Innovation Council, which is headed by the president of the country, and the other members of the council are ministers of cognate ministries like agriculture, environment, water resources, petroleum power, and so on, that are expected to be able to interrelate with STI and get research and development outputs for the betterment of these other sectors. And the Ministry of Science and Technology is the secretariat to the NRIC. Now the NRIC has, one of it is to evolve the various policy, the structure and the implementation of the STI policy. But key to it is the NRIF, the National Research and Innovation Fund, which of course has been highlighted here throughout today's gathering. Funding is a very key role in the effective implementation of the STI policy in any country. And Nigeria is one of the countries in Africa that is not doing enough for the funding of STI. And we have discovered that it's just not possible through annual appropriation to be able to raise funds for STI. So we are looking into other areas of fundraising. Apart from government allocations, we're looking at PPP, private-public partnership, or public-private partnership, as it were, international donors, venture capital, and so on. But in the meantime, we have our agencies under the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, and we have identified some flagship programs, because science and technology in the country, we discovered that to be able to really achieve or begin to achieve what we hope to gain, and that is to get the people at the grassroots to really understand and appreciate this inclusiveness. We want to address the issue of this knowledge divide. We don't want a situation where there is a lack of communication. So we want to be able to address certain issues like poverty eradication, the women and girl child empowerment, and the issue of capacity building and renewable energy. These are very, very germane and basic issues that have to be addressed, especially when you're looking at socioeconomic development. And we have these flagship programs that have commenced. For example, we have the Ward-Based Technology Cluster Program. This program is being driven by the ministry and one of the agencies. And what we did here is that we identify the natural resources and what is unique or peculiar to various communities. The idea is that we help them at their own level to develop their own type of technology. For example, in the riverine areas, we have women, especially who are engaged in fishing and fish preservation and so on. And they've been using very basic local ways. Now some of our research institutes have developed more advanced and should I say labor-friendly mode of fish preservation. The idea is that these people, not everybody goes to school, not everybody is going to become a researcher or a scientist or an engineer, but let us meet them at their own level and see how we can improve, make their own industry less tasking, improve in terms of speed, in terms of efficacy and efficiency, help them to generate more income within their own local environment. And we have done that successfully. We've had some pilot schemes where we've brought the improved species, fish species, we've got improved equipment and so on to assist at that level. So this is what we're doing with the world-based technology cluster programs. We are also, luckily, the last parliament or the last National Assembly finally passed the biosafety bill, and the former president signed that into law. And now we can now go on to carry out more advanced biotechnology and GMOs and so on. So what we have now is that we are now able to work with other sister countries that have already gone into biosafety and already gone into improved species and genetically modified productions and so on. So we are now working in that aspect, and that's really going to help, especially in the area of food security. One of the issues that have come up, and also has come up here, is how people view science, technology, and innovation. And if the industrialists or the businessmen do not see it as something that's going to generate any returns to them, they will not be interested in going in. So what we're doing now is that we have worked harder to improve the connect between the policymakers as government, the knowledge and the action communities. And we now want to address, we don't just go into research for the sake of academic papers, but to meet the needs of industry. Because we want our science, technology, and innovation to fulfill a need. Most of in fact, almost all the industrialized nations and the development that has been achieved is because the science and technology and research family were able to identify the needs of industrialists and see how they could bring innovation to improve the levels of production and so on. So, in a nutshell, I didn't really put up a paper as such, but what I'm just trying to say is that here now in Nigeria, we have realized that we have to link science and technology to industry, and government policy has to go in line with the needs of the people to improve the level of human life, to improve the quality of human life, to be able to improve our infrastructure and be able for the Nigerian people to feel this real impact that yes, STI is working and it's not just left to be at the academic level. But we really want this gathering. This is a very important gathering, and I'm so happy to be here because I'm going to be briefing my president when I return home. And one thing I really want us to emphasize here is that African nations leaders need to really exercise the political will to invest the minimum 1% GDP into science, technology, and innovation. Most of the time, and I'm happy we have parliamentarians here, to go back to tell our leaders, our political leaders, we are in the bureaucracy, but the political leaders, they have to really put their foot down. Because a lot of times when they say, oh, there's no money, you'll be surprised that money will come out for things that that will engage maybe procurement and something that would have some quick returns. STI does not bring the quick returns, but it has that long-lasting impact. And we have to emphasize that at this gathering, and I hope the communique will capture that aspect, that there must be the political will for government to be ready to be determined to set aside funds for science, technology, and innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam. That has been very brilliant. The next speaker in line is the Deputy Minister of Education, Science and Technology from South Sudan, Honorable Bol Makwen. You are welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, the chair dictated me to stay here. I wanted to go to the podium so that you see me, and also, but she used her powers. Don't go. Very powerful lady. So, Madam Chair, Honorable Ministers, the parliamentarians, the chiefs of the UNESCO, the under-secretaries and permanent secretaries, ladies and gentlemen, the protocol is observed at the Chattanois. In fact, I'm happy to be here. First of all, this is the home of late charismatic leader Kwame Nkrumah, who proclaimed 52 years ago how science and technology will improve the lives of Africans. And it is now 52 years ago, and we are still lamenting, telling stories and stories and stories. I have been listening while sitting there, and I was just imagining the Atlantic slave trade across this vast ocean and relating it to the current movement of Africans who are dying at the sea, and how the relevance of what we are talking here is going to help us to come out of this sad, miserable, continuous story of our suffering. And in fact, I'm coming from South Sudan, a country which will be 4 years old next tomorrow on the 9th of July. And so we have never had opportunity to sit in such conferences. The country has been at war for 22 years, and then infrastructure destroyed. So we are trying to catch up with the developed world. And when countries that were independent 60 years ago are still with us in the same boat, then it begs many questions about where are we going and where will we be. So I don't know how long the stories will continue, but all the same, let me quickly save time to say that the first STI conference we attended was in Congo, Brazzaville, last year. Then we came to Cameroon, and then Ethiopia, and now this is the fourth one. My minister is in Oslo now, attending another conference. We are trying to gather as many stories as possible, but we are not going to attend many conferences because we'll make sense of what we are getting from all these forums. This is a serious thing because these stories cannot go on and on and on, then we don't put them to a stop. And therefore, what we have been doing anyway is that we appointed a committee from our own country, that is the STI committee, to work on policy. That's now our starting point. We are starting from scratch. They are at a certain stage, after which we are going to call a big conference. But in the middle, we had a conference, a small conference, that was attended by all the ministries and the government officials, the private sector, so that we sensitize them about the relevance of STI in our lives, such that when we are going to introduce certain policies, it will not be news to anyone. So we are making that as a starting point. We also involve the lecturers from the universities. We are now planning for a conference which will take place soon, about 10 days or so from now. We will call in many from different organizations. NEPAD will be there, AU will be there also. Most of the African countries will participate in their capacity as academics, because we want to see how they argue their stories. It is the same situation or different from what we are going to do there. Just last week, we completed a conference by the National Council for Higher Education, and in that conference we emphasized on something, because it's not a policy yet, but what we emphasized was that about 80% or more intake to the universities and higher institutions must be science-based. Engineering, medicine, health, agriculture, veterinary, all those related to construction, to building, to whatever we can achieve. So there's an idea still being studied by our learned lecturers. We also said that for those universities to have that intake, the lower levels of primary and secondary schools must have as much as possible an amount of science, mathematics, and certain principles of innovation embodied in the curriculum, so that they are well prepared for tasks that they will get in the universities and higher institutions of learning. So it is a kind of mobilization of minds from that age, the children, the teachers, the officials, the academic community, and the private sector. We have also said that a capacity building among the existing officials and skills should be upgraded, and try to get the best practices of utilizing STI as much as possible. One thing we are keen to find out is that which Africa or African country has the lessons for us to learn. And that's why our committee is traveling from country to country to find out how STI is organized in those countries, such that we can replicate the most fruitful one, not the one of storytelling. So we will work on those things. You remember, you cannot eradicate poverty without eradicating hunger. If you get rid of hunger, then poverty will fade off by itself, because you cannot get someone with a full stomach and you say this person is poor again. Then something is wrong with that judgment, which means that something must be prioritized among the STI programs in Africa and in my country. If you don't do it, I will do it in my country, because I know what I'm talking about. And therefore, this idea of our children dying in the sea must be limited. There is something driving them out from Africa. It's now voluntary slavery. The way they are treated, the way they are feared is disgusting, and I think no African human being will appreciate that. So, Madam Chair, I'm almost about to end. Don't please raise your hand. So, we have been involved. We are considering a lot of policy issues. One of them is already being implemented. We have an affirmative action policy action by which we absorb between 35 to 55% of women in every structure we have, whether it is a school structure or university or even in the executive in the parliament. This is the largest proportion of women. I think no one can match us worldwide in the number of women that are being observed into this sector, because it is a policy. If you don't implement it where you are, then you are failing the system. So for us, I think we are successful, whether it is the MDG or not, because we are not working according to that. We are working to what will liberate the South Sudanese out of poverty, because we did it with the gun. Now we are doing it in another way. And therefore, we actually listen to your stories. We are not about MDGs or SDGs. No, we are about what will liberate these people, and then they will be what they call themselves. Whether it is about SDGs or something else is up to them. But their interest for them to be decent and live happily is our objective. So we have also got the scholarships, which is very good. And in fact, I was going to ask if anyone would give us scholarships, because I'm very thankful to Zimbabwe and Ethiopia. They have given us scholarships. And you know, guess what? 80% are absorbed in engineering, medicine, and the like, because that's the area. If you give me to come and study something outside STI, I will not take it. So we are prioritizing that here. And so the curriculum we have prioritized on those things. We have formed the National Research Council to initiate research programs and working on the national structure of the Research Council itself, and this will relate to the rest of Africa and the world at large. We are actually very conscious people while we are, I'm remaining with 1 minute, I will just summarize. So we are building our capacities to address very urgent things, which we only bring to 3, but it could be anything besides that. The infrastructure, that's the physical infrastructure, the roads, access, water systems, and food security. If we can get this right in a very short time, then they will expand to cover the rest. We are suggesting in our policy that a certain GDP percentage will be contributed, and that will be a policy. I'm glad to say that our president is behind what I'm talking about. Once we have a direction, he will just support what we are talking about. So we are looking into the soundness of what we are doing, and our monitoring and evaluation of what we are doing will be membered actually by the civil society organizations, Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy, Telecommunication, the academic universities, finance and economic development. These will be those that will evaluate our performance, and they will actually be telling us and will set national standards with effect to that. I think, Madam Chair, let me say thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I now understand why you wanted to be seen, but we've seen you through your voice. Thank you very much. It is now the turn of Gambia, and Dr. Chemo Omar Barry will do that presentation on behalf of the Gambia.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I understand that people are getting hungry, so I'm going to try my best to make it fast. I would like to, first of all, thank the predecessor, the one who just spoke earlier, because he just triggered some memories here. Being the youngest country and realizing that he is at par with the oldest countries in Africa since independence is really a horrible discovery. I'm sure to all of us. I'm going to be very quick and very brief. First of all, I would like us to understand that when we hear and we are discussing issues, the most relevant thing is understanding what we have first and how we can build our STI from what we have first and expand towards areas that are new to us. And I'm proud to say that I come from a country, and if the late Kwame Nkrumah had made a statement on STI and meant it, I come from a country where my president also means what he says when he says STI. because he means it. He declared 2012 as the year of STI. Since then, he has been given STI. Every year, he will tell us that it is still the year of STI. So we would not even know when the year would ever end. But that shows that the political power, will is there. Not only that, but he also literally does what he believes in. He does not sit in offices and discuss. He doesn't travel around the world meeting other presidents, saying things that he believes they are just going to be written on paper and gather dust in shelves. He is an action man. He goes directly on the farm and he farms. He has made three declarations since he arrived as a president. One, he said it should be Operation Feed the Nation. He meant it. But when he realized that people didn't understand what he meant, he made a second declaration and he said, we have to grow what we eat and eat what we grow, meaning that we have to constantly be conscious that importing food is not what is sustainable to us. He realized people didn't understand still, and he imposed a Vision 2016. And since he imposed it, Vision 2016, everybody is rushing to the farms. Even permanent secretaries and ministers have got their own small plot of land to do their farming. So he tells people that he is serious. And I think that is what an action man is about. It's not about talking, discussing, bringing papers. It's about going on the farm and being actionable. He has, at this moment he has, and for those who know my president, they know what he says is what he means. He has said that as of December 2016, no rice will be imported in the country. Let me tell you one thing. Human beings by nature adapt. The moment you put hardship on any human being, they automatically mutate to adapt to that hardship. And this is the understanding. So if no rice is coming in, definitely we will adapt to the little rice we have. But then it will also push us, because we are completely rice dependent, to cultivate more rice and eat. So you can understand then he means what he says when he says grow what you eat and eat what you grow. He's very serious about it. So we have to build from within, build from what we have. And this leads me to the 3 points that our distinguished representative, regional representative from UNESCO said. Energy, water, food. Energy is indispensable to Africa. We have all the opportunities to have energy in this country, but we have never made any effort, and this is the honest truth, to invest in those areas. We have hydro energy, hydropower. Ghana is one example. Kwame Nkrumah made a wonderful, beginning by building the Akosombo Dam, which was a very good, but we have never emulated that effort. Guinea-Conakry has one of the most powerful waterfalls in this continent. It could have, with a very proper dam built there, a little investment, it could have served the whole of sub-Saharan Africa energy for free, if they wish, for free. But unfortunately, we are not investing in the right places. Yet look at a country like Guinea-Conakry. It has deposits of diamonds. It has deposits of gold. It is the second largest deposit of bauxite in this world. And for those who don't know what bauxite is about, bauxite is one of the very rare minerals that can be used even to build the body of planes. But they are not getting the riches they require. It's one of the poorest countries in Africa. So the energy we need, we can have it. The waterfall I mentioned. We have so much sunlight that we can even export it to the West. But we don't even know how to maximize the utility of that sunlight to get the energy we need. We have so much wind, we don't even know how to utilize that wind to get the energy. And we still import energy that is unsustainable in our own continents. Very big fuel-consuming machines that will break up every moment and cause blackouts. So how can we build industry? How can we talk of innovation? How can we talk of STI when we cannot even build industries that require energy at all costs to make sure that we build them? It's not possible. That's the truth. We have water. Africa at the moment have water. But we are still unable to harness and cultivate the water that we have. Cultivating rainfall, for example, is one thing that is essential. But we don't even know that cultivating rainfall could not only avoid disasters, like one that has happened in Accra very recently, and I'm sure those who don't know will probably find out. And it can, in addition, have what we call the water management and water that we require, so that the water that we are losing from the ground, we can also get it from the sky up. Food, I can assure you, in every country today, if you look at their annual expenditure on food, the highest percentage is used on importing food. The highest percentage of their annual expenditure. And what are we doing? Africa is the most, especially sub-Saharan Africa, is the most fertile ground for cultivation. We can cultivate, not only that, we can even do horticulture, or even do, animal husbandry, poultry farming. We have all the opportunities to build that industry. But to be honest, I don't think it has become a priority. It is good at discussions, it is very bad at implementation. And then, not only that, but it's true that rainfall, like in the case of Senegal, the rainfall is diminishing by the year. Every year now, the number of rains that come are becoming lower and lower. Now, what are we doing? We have River Senegal, for example. We could use River Senegal to make sure that irrigation goes all year round. There are other opportunities of ensuring that all year agriculture is happening. In the Gambia, for example, as I have mentioned, we have already put in place all the industry. Any land that is not used is going to be used for farming. Any land that is not used is going to be used for farming. But we are not going to be contented with only rice cultivation, because rice alone does not feed anybody. We have also looked into all the other sustainable projects in agriculture, whether it's short-term or long-term, that would make sure that we have a sustainable food supply and food self-sufficiency. Now, in the case of health, we cannot discuss all these things without talking about health. We understand, for example, that we have, in Africa, we have already built a lot of knowledge in our own local health systems. In some countries, some promotions are happening. But there's one thing we are not good at. We are not good at promoting our own. We are very good at promoting what comes out, but never what comes from within. We seem to look at it as, of low quality and things like that. But any country, take China for example, when they started their industry, everybody will say, hey, it's mass production, mass production. But I can assure you now they have one of the biggest markets. That mass production is what is bringing now all the wealth back to China. And people are becoming even to shift their eyes towards Asia. Earlier you would say, okay, when I buy a car, it should come from the UK, it must be a Range Rover, a Land Rover, or from the US, it must be a GMC or whatever. But now people don't mind buying a Haval from China, or buying any other machine from Japan. Not only is it, easier to purchase, but it is much stronger because it's adapted to the context we are in. Health is important. Healthcare is important. And we have not been doing much effort in that area in the development of science. I will just finish here by saying there are certain elements that are indispensable now when we talk of post-2015 and sustaining development is reforming education. Most of our education systems do not really respond to the needs of our continents. And we have to be very honest about it. And I'm not talking of reform, I'm talking of revamp. A reform is a modification. A revamp is a whole change. It is indispensable that we change the education system. Let the education system be aligned to industry. Let it be aligned to the local needs. Let it be aligned to the needs of the country itself, or the sub-region. In our case, higher education has been reformed. From ECD, in fact, up to university, everything that has to do with technical vocational education is being given top priority. Children are being given guidance to go into skills development, so that they will know that any skill development they do is not an end, it doesn't just end at a certificate or diploma level. It can take them right up to university. So I'm appealing at this forum and discussion, let us look at that. Let us look at the building of capacity. Let us encourage industrial development. And most importantly, let us promote our local industry. Thank you very much.
I think this session is becoming more interesting as you all speak from the heart. Our last speaker is from Senegal, Dr. Nuhu Diaby. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will speak in French. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Mesdames, Messieurs les ministres et représentants des ministres, Mesdames, Messieurs les parlementaires, Mesdames, Messieurs les participants à vos noms, titres et qualités. Moi, je me suis plus préparé à parler, disons, de l'agenda que de parler de ce qui est en train de se faire dans mon pays. Donc, je vais axer l'intervention sur 4 points et puis peut-être conclure sur quelques activités au Sénégal. J'ai comparé les objectifs du millénaire pour le développement avec les objectifs de développement durable. Et quand je les compare, nous avions 8 objectifs du millénaire pour le développement, et ces 8 objectifs, en fait, sont regroupés dans 5, disons, domaines. La pauvreté, l'éducation, le genre, la santé, l'environnement et le partenariat pour le développement. Et si je regarde les 17 objectifs de développement durable, je vois que ces 5 domaines reviennent, mais il y a de nouveaux domaines qui arrivent. L'énergie, l'eau et l'assainissement, mais surtout les infrastructures industrielles et l'innovation. Et ça, c'est une nouveauté. Dans un programme comme cela, inclure l'innovation. Ensuite, le développement durable. Donc, en analysant ces 17 objectifs, dont la plupart reprennent les objectifs du millénaire pour le développement, et en y ajoutant le manque de ressources naturelles qui va venir en Afrique, qui est en train de venir en Afrique, on voit que tous les maux de l'Afrique, en fait, sont résumés dans ces objectifs-là. Les défis de développement de l'Afrique. Maintenant, comment la science, la technologie et l'innovation peuvent aider à relever ces défis? Pour répondre à cette question, nous devons d'abord essayer de voir quels sont même les défis auxquels est confronté le développement de la science et de la technologie. Pourquoi nous ne pouvons pas en Afrique mobiliser la science et la technologie et l'innovation pour régler nos problèmes de développement? Pourquoi? Beaucoup de problèmes, beaucoup de défis. Le premier, le capital humain, le développement des compétences. Nous n'avons pas assez de compétences dans certains domaines. Aujourd'hui, par exemple, Airbus peut délocaliser au Maroc, mais Airbus ne peut pas délocaliser au Sénégal. Parce que si Airbus délocalise au Sénégal, il n'aura pas la main-d'œuvre qualifiée pour faire le travail. Il faut développer des compétences. Il faut qu'on investisse. On parle toujours d'investissement. M. Conté, dans sa présentation, a parlé que l'investissement vient toujours de l'étranger. Ce qui fait que ça ne correspond pas forcément à nos besoins. Et les gens souvent font de la recherche pour avancer, mais pas pour régler des problèmes de développement. Donc il faut qu'on investisse. Depuis 1980, le plan d'action de Lagos, 1%. Il y a vraiment un réel manque de volonté d'arriver à cela depuis 1980. On dit que c'est important. En réalité, les défis, on les connaît, mais il n'y a pas d'action qui suit. Une vision commune. Faire des sciences, technologies et innovations la base pour développer les autres politiques sectorielles. Ça manque aussi en Afrique. Les indicateurs. Depuis quelques années, ça a changé. Avec l'initiative ASTI, qui a fini par donner l'Observatoire africain pour les sciences, technologies et innovations. Il y a une amélioration au niveau des indicateurs. Mais c'est important. Si nous ne savons pas où est-ce que nous sommes, comment nous pouvons savoir où est-ce que nous devons aller? Il nous manque des données. Aujourd'hui, moi, je devais pouvoir dire de combien d'ingénieurs informatiques on a besoin aujourd'hui, de combien on va avoir besoin demain, après-demain. Je devais pouvoir le dire. Il devait pouvoir y avoir des études qui me permettent de savoir ce dont j'ai besoin. Ça me permet d'orienter les curricula, les formations vers ces domaines-là. Ça n'existe pas. Il nous manque des données. Même si, depuis l'arrivée de l'AOSTI, il y a des avancées. Et puis, une réflexion stratégique. On fait souvent la recherche à propos d'eux. On demande aux chercheurs, oui, je fais la recherche sur. Mais on ne fait pas la recherche pour. La recherche pour régler quelque chose. La recherche avec. La recherche par. Aller vers cela. Donc changer de paradigme. Et puis quitter ce partenariat au développement où on nous aide. Aller vers le partenariat où tout le monde contribue. Si tout le monde contribue, on se parle d'égal en égal. On ne va pas subir les sujets, mais on va travailler ensemble sur le sujet et sur le transfert de technologie. Donc tout cela sont des défis auxquels nous devons nous attaquer si nous voulons que les sciences, technologies et innovations jouent leur rôle dans l'agenda post-2015. Heureusement, il y a des opportunités. Il y a des opportunités. La première, c'est qu'il y a une prise de conscience, aussi bien chez les politiques que chez les populations, que la science, la technologie et l'innovation peut jouer un rôle important. Si aujourd'hui, on a pu faire reculer certaines maladies, si aujourd'hui, malgré qu'on n'ait pas atteint l'objectif, que la pauvreté a diminué, si aujourd'hui les gens mangent plus, même si la famine demeure encore, c'est parce que la science et la technologie a joué un rôle. Donc il y a des opportunités, il y a une prise de conscience. Nous avons des politiques au niveau continental. On a la STISA qui vient d'être présentée par Conté. Au niveau de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, nous avons ECOPOST, la politique de l'ECOWAS. Et dans les autres sous-régions, il y a des politiques. Les pays sont en train d'élaborer des documents de politique. Tout ça, ce sont des opportunités pour que la science et la technologie, l'innovation viennent jouer un rôle très important. Donc j'ai parlé de la coopération. Donc je vois mon ami Stéphane, nous sommes dans un projet qui est appelé CASNET, qui renforce, Georges est dans ce même projet, Georges SECB, qui renforce la coopération birégionale entre l'Afrique et l'Union européenne. Donc il y a la coopération. Mais il faut qu'on aille plus loin, qu'on fait des coopérations où on confinance des projets, comme le projet Air Africa que Stéphane va vous présenter cet après-midi. Il y a le PACET. Qui ne connaît pas le PACET? Le PACET, c'est le partenariat pour les sciences appliquées, l'ingénierie et la technologie, lancé en 2013 en Éthiopie. Et aujourd'hui, avec, disons, des champions, le président du Sénégal, le président du Rwanda, le premier ministre de l'Éthiopie. Et ces trois pays sont d'accord pour que le fonds qui vise à former 10 000 PhD dans le domaine scientifique, que ce fonds-là, en fait, aujourd'hui, ils ont déjà mis, chaque pays a déjà mis 2 millions de dollars. Chacun de ces pays a déjà mis 2 millions de dollars. Donc, tout ça sont des opportunités qui font que la science et la technologie peut jouer un meilleur rôle. Et puis, il y a la circulation du savoir, des cerveaux. Moi, je ne parle pas de fuite de cerveau. Je parle de mobilité des cerveaux. Aujourd'hui, si on met les conditions qu'il faut, tous les bons cerveaux ghanéens vont revenir au Ghana. Tous les bons cerveaux sénégalais vont revenir au Sénégal et ça va circuler, donc l'information va circuler. Donc pour finir, il me reste 1 minute, donc quelques recommandations. Il faut qu'on aille vers plus d'action et qu'on arrête les discours. On a fait beaucoup de plans, mais on ne les applique pas. Donc plus d'action, moins de discours. Faire des politiques STI qui sont transversales, qui s'adressent à tous les sujets. Et puis spécialiser les pays. Le Ghana peut faire quelque chose que le Sénégal ne peut pas faire. Le commerce intra-africain peut régler beaucoup de nos problèmes. Et, comme l'a dit tout à l'heure donc, un de mes prédécesseurs, demander à nos chers pays de respecter enfin l'engagement qu'ils ont pris depuis Lagos et puis depuis aussi le plan de l'Union africaine de mettre au minimum 1% du PIB dans les STI. Pour finir, Madame Thier, si vous permettez, comme tout le monde a parlé de son pays, pour dire que le Sénégal met l'accent sur le développement des compétences. Nous avons déjà réformé notre système d'enseignement supérieur. On met l'accent sur le développement des compétences et sur l'investissement dans les infrastructures. Aujourd'hui, on a un plan sur 5 ans, commencé depuis 2013, d'investir 600 millions de dollars dans l'enseignement supérieur et la recherche. Et personnellement, j'ai l'honneur et le plaisir de diriger un projet d'équipement de laboratoire de 30 millions de dollars et il est en cours d'exécution. Donc nous croyons au développement des compétences et c'est en développant les compétences que les STI pourront jouer un rôle. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. We've heard from all the 6 presenters, and it is now time for our main discussant to lead us, take a few burning issues, one or two, and then we will conclude the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We have all listened closely to each of the 6 presenters, and from there we have seen the challenges and opportunities that abound within Africa. And I just want to make one simple observation, which is based on something I was told 2 weeks ago by the High Commissioner of the Senegal River Basin Authority when we were talking about how to link underground water with the surface water, and he said, how can we manage what we don't know about? And this is precisely what I'm bringing here. How do you solve problems that you don't really know about? And that is a key issue that arises here, because if we don't know the challenges and if we don't know the opportunities, then we cannot really solve these problems. And I'll just go quickly. I won't say everything everybody has said, but just maybe pick out salient points. From Zimbabwe, the issue is on how to quickly use our natural resources for rapid industrialization. How do we do that? From Tanzania, there are various issues, but I would like to look at the issue of these silos in terms of the management of the science-related organizations, which is very important because in many cases, ministries work sometimes at cross purposes and don't listen to each other when they all share the same goals in terms of sciences. She mentioned about policies and regulatory frameworks, and that was an important thing I picked there. There are many other things she said which are quite important. Nigeria also said the same thing. They are having the same problems, that the sectors are not really talking to each other very much. And they are setting up different systems to try to solve this. In the case of Southern Sudan, I think that we have here a country that doesn't want to reinvent the wheel of failure. They want to, in fact, learn from what has happened to the others and move as fast as they can to successes. And so their goal is to learn from what I've seen. And that is the challenge they have. How do they learn from us, from the other countries, is a challenge. What can we teach Southern Sudan? And from the Gambia, the key issue is, in fact, on food security. That's what I get from it, really. On the issue of food security in Africa. And it's linked somehow to what the representative from Southern Sudan said. Why are people running away? Why are people leaving the continent? And we think that it has to do with the three critical issues: security, food, and then, well, you can say jobs, but they are linked somehow. Energy and all that. And from Senegal, the key challenges remain that of human capital development. How do we have enough people in our countries to attract technology-based FDIs, for example? He talked about the case of Morocco, where Airbus has gone to, and he asked, why is it that they're not coming to Senegal? And it is because the human capital for such is not there. And so there is that challenge, and it cuts across the whole nations of Africa. And part of the reason he said, again, is that the nations of Africa have not had the political will to actually actualize the 1% target they themselves set as far back as 1980. They have not had the political will to meet that so as to strengthen their STI systems. Now, having said this, we are throwing the floor open for questions to the... Okay, the chair says just 2 questions from the floor, please, or comments.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry to use the French language. It's easier for me. Je voudrais apporter donc une clarification. Suite à tous ces exposés concernant donc le thème d'aujourd'hui de cet atelier, auquel je participe avec beaucoup de plaisir, je dois dire, et on est tous d'accord, que la science et la technologie constituent la cheville ouvrière de tout développement d'un pays. Ça, c'est certain. Donc, il est inadmissible de penser un seul instant qu'un pays, pour son développement, n'utilise pas une réflexion scientifique ou une réflexion technologique. Donc, pour le développement de son pays, bien entendu.
On a écouté donc à la transition des ONG et les ONG, mais sans étaler donc un bilan réel et une évaluation réelle de la phase de 2015 concernant donc l'atteinte des objectifs. Il y a une disparité, on le sait. Si on ne parle que de l'Afrique, hein, il y a une disparité. Il y a des pays qui ont atteint largement les objectifs. Il y en a d'autres qui les ont atteints moyennement, qui en la majorité n'ont pas été atteints. Donc il faut se poser la question, les raisons. Quelle est cette cause de disparité? Quelle est cette cause de non-atteinte à ces objectifs qui font d'un pays, donc tout ce que le peuple veut bien de son gouvernement? Donc, il est possible de penser que la science et la technologie n'ont pas été utilisées. J'entends depuis ce matin, c'est comme si on va utiliser un nouveau concept pour le développement. Or, la science et la technologie ont été toujours utilisées. Dans toute réflexion scientifique et technologique, on utilise justement pour le développement. Quelle est la différence? La différence, c'est que la science et la technologie évoluent rapidement au niveau mondial. Donc il y a un problème de vitesse d'adaptation de la science et de la technologie. À chaque fois qu'il y a une atteinte donc, à un objectif particulier, il y a de l'amélioration, il y a de la technologie qui se développe, et donc il y a une vitesse d'adaptation, d'où cette disparité entre les pays donc, qui s'adaptent, qui arrivent à s'adapter, qui n'arrivent pas à s'adapter avec une vitesse donc, convenable. Donc, je voulais dire, donc les raisons, on aimerait bien les étaler. Je ne vais pas étaler les raisons pour les pays qui n'ont pas atteint. Il y a beaucoup de problèmes, il y a beaucoup de situations particulières. Et quand on parle d'un gouvernement, dont l'objectif fondamental, c'est d'exécuter un programme gouvernemental. Le programme gouvernemental, généralement, il est basé sur l'atteinte, par exemple, de ces objectifs du millénaire. Par exemple, régler le problème de l'eau, c'est un problème gouvernemental. Donc, un gouvernement doit convenablement exécuter un programme particulier. D'où le rôle, et on va en parler demain, d'où le rôle des parlementaires. Quel est le rôle des parlementaires dans tout ça? Le rôle des parlementaires, et je vais terminer, je vais terminer, juste 2 minutes, une minute et je termine. Je dois dire que, justement, je termine avec le rôle des parlementaires, et on va en parler demain. C'est l'action parlementaire, c'est le suivi et le contrôle des gouvernements dans l'exécution. Si par exemple le jour du débat de la loi de finances qui se débattent chaque année, on ne parle pas donc de régler le problème de l'eau dans un pays, il faut en discuter et convaincre donc les décideurs et les exécuteurs du programme à focaliser sur cette notion de l'eau. De l'eau, ça nécessite une réflexion technologique et on le règle. Sur le plan géologique, sur le plan technologique, sur le plan génie, architecture, science, et ainsi de suite. Donc on utilise toute la science pour régler le problème de l'eau. Quelqu'un a dit qu'il y a de l'eau naturelle, c'est la pluie. Eh bien, il faut exploiter la pluie. La pluie de l'eau, il faut des retenues d'eau, il faut des barrages, etc., etc. Donc, la solution, elle existe, mais comment y arriver, c'est ça le problème. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup.
My name is Stefan Lachner. I'm from the German Aerospace Center Project Management Agency. We're working for the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. I'm working together with my friend George and with Nuhu on the Carson Plus project. I've just a brief comment. When we are talking about science, technology and innovation, innovation is not only about economy. It's not only about market-oriented products. We should have in mind, from my perspective, that innovation thinking is needed for policy making. So this means to invest into science could not only be made by those who are interested in producing products. There should be also investments from the policy sides, and this also leads to that we urgently need also social sciences, and we have to invest in social sciences for the implementation of findings or whatever. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think we've come to the end of this interesting session. I have to cut the discussant somewhere along the line because lunch is waiting. And what I've gathered is that we know what to do, we know where to go, we only have to walk the talk, and we need the champions. I thank you for your attention.
Yeah, quick announcement. We will go for lunch now, the same place we had a coffee break. I can really understand it's a long walk, but when you get there, the ambience, the whole layout is very beautiful, so it's worth walking. After lunch, we'll come for the power sessions. The power session, session 1, will be here. It's quite a big room, but because of the arrangement, we like to keep it as it is. So session 1 will be here. Session 2 and 3, follow the arrow after lunch. There will be an arrow direction. There are another 2 sub-unit conference rooms that session 2 and 3 would be. Yeah, so that's the announcement. Please enjoy lunch. Yes, sorry. Lunch is for 1 hour, but because of what the late start of our program, can we try and be fast within 45 minutes? Yes. So we expect to be at the power sessions at 3:30, right? And also you would register at the power sessions for your various group, because we'll come here and you make your presentations. Once again, enjoy lunch.